The relentless heat of Vexar 9 twin suns scorched the central bazaar, turning the air into a shimmering haze thick with the acrid scent of molten ore, volcanic ash, and the sharp tang of molten metal from overworked forges. The colony, carved into the side of a massive, dormant volcano that still rumbled ominously beneath the ground, was a patchwork of survivalist ingenuity. Ramshackle stalls fashioned from rusted starship hulls and reinforced with scavenged durasteel beams lined the uneven, cracked streets. Miners, their faces etched with lines of exhaustion and coated in a perpetual layer of grime, bartered fiercely for essential supplies. Ration packs that tasted like recycled cardboard, tools worn down from endless use, and the occasional luxury like a bottle of synthetic ale that promised a brief escape from the drudgery. Traders from distant worlds hawked their wares with booming voices, their eyes sharp as plasma torches, always ready to exploit the desperation of those who toiled in the depths of the planet's treacherous caves. Distant drilling rigs hummed and groaned, their vibrations sending small tremors through the ground, a constant reminder that Vexar 9 was as unforgiving as it was resource-rich, yielding rare minerals and exotic flora that fetched high prices on the galactic black markets. But on this sweltering afternoon, the bazaar's usual rhythm of haggling and commerce had twisted into something darker, more primal, a spectacle of public humiliation that drew a growing crowd like moths to a plasma flame. Whispers spread through the throng, pulling in off-duty miners, curious vendors, and even a few wide-eyed newcomers who had just disembarked from the latest supply shuttle. The air buzzed with anticipation, laced with the cruel undercurrent of mob mentality, as people jostled for better views, their faces a mix of morbid fascination and detached amusement. In the center of it all, stumbling forward on unsteady legs, was Kalia Vren, a once-respected archaeobotanist from the verdant paradise world of Silvaris. Her sapphire-blue skin, normally vibrant and iridescent under natural light, was now dulled by a film of dust, sweat, and the purplish bruises that bloomed across her arms and torso like invasive weeds. Her jet-black hair, which she typically wove into intricate braids adorned with bioluminescent beads symbolizing her clan's ancient lineage of scholars, hung in wild, matted clumps, sticking to her sweat-slicked face and offering scant protection from the leering stares that pierced her like needles. Stripped bare by the colony's enforcers in a calculated act of degradation, Kalia clutched her arms across her chest, her slender, athletic frame, honed from years of fieldwork in treacherous terrains, trembling not just from the physical exposure but from the soul-crushing weight of the humiliation. Each step on the rough, ash-strewn ground sent jolts of pain through her bare feet scraped raw by the jagged volcanic rock. The crowd's jeers rose in a cacophonous wave, insults hurled like weapons. Saboteur. Off-world filth, blue-skinned spy. Rotten synth fruits, engineered to last in harsh environments but now overripe and foul, splattered against her skin, their sticky juices mixing with the mining slag chunks of discarded ore and debris that pelted her relentlessly. Each impact felt like a fresh wound, not just to her body but to her spirit, eroding the confidence of a woman who had dedicated her life to unraveling the mysteries of alien ecosystems. Overseeing this orchestrated torment from a raised platform at the bazaar's edge was Torin Skal, the colony's iron-fisted logistics chief, a man whose reputation for ruthlessness was as solid as the durasteel he traded. His gaunt, ash-gray face, marked by a jagged scar that ran from his temple to his cheek like a fault line in cracked earth, twisted into a cold, satisfied grin. Tall and wiry, with limbs that seemed too long for his frame, Torin was clad in a reinforced exosuit that amplified his presence, its plates etched with the insignia of the colony's corporate overlords. He had built his power on fear and favors, controlling the flow of supplies and information with an iron grip. Kalia had been a threat to that empire. During her research into Vexar 9 volcanic caves, she had stumbled upon his secret operation, a black market trade in rare bioluminescent flora, plants that glowed with an otherworldly light and possessed properties that could revolutionize medicine or, in the wrong hands, be weaponized into devastating biotoxins. These specimens, harvested illegally from protected zones, were sold to shadowy off-world collectors for fortunes and credits, lining Torin's pockets while endangering the fragile balance of the planet's ecosystem. Framing Kalia as a corporate spy had been a masterstroke of deception. Falsified logs showing her transmitting data to rival firms, whispered rumors among the miners about her suspicious off-hours explorations, and a staged discovery of planted evidence in her quarters. Now this walk of shame, a colonial tradition reserved for the most despised offenders, would discredit her completely, ensuring that any accusations she leveled against him would be dismissed as the ravings of a disgraced alien. Torin crossed his arms, his scar twitching as he watched her progress, savoring the way the crowd fed off her vulnerability. It was a display of power, a warning to anyone else who might dare to dig too deep. "Move it, Blueskin," snarled one of Torin's guards, a burly reptilian enforcer whose scales gleamed like tarnished bronze under the sun's glare. His name was Grak, a loyal brute who had risen through the ranks by cracking skulls and asking no questions. He prodded Kalia forward with the butt of his stun baton, the weapon humming with latent energy that promised agony if she faltered. The crowd's laughter swelled again, a few bolder souls tossing more debris, bits of rusted metal spoiled rations that struck her shoulders and back, leaving welts that burned in the heat. Kalia's amber eyes, usually sharp and analytical, filled with tears that she fought to hold back, her mind racing through memories of her homeworld, the lush, glowing forests of Silvaris where vines twisted into natural cathedrals and knowledge was revered above all. How had she ended up here, reduced to this? Her heart hammered against her ribs, each beat a mix of fear, anger, and a desperate hope that this nightmare would end. Through the swirling haze of tears and ash, Kalia barely registered the commotion until it was upon her, a tall figure shoving through the dense wall of onlookers with purposeful strides. He was a human, rare in these remote colonies where most inhabitants were hardy aliens adapted to harsh environments. Broad-shouldered and wiry, with sun-bleached hair that fell in unkempt waves over a forehead lined from years under alien suns, his piercing green eyes locked onto her with an intensity that cut through the chaos. His skin was tanned and weathered, marked by faint scars from welding burns and close calls in industrial accidents, and he moved with the confident gait of someone who had faced down worse than a jeering mob. Rin Calder had docked on Vexar 9 that morning, his battered freighter loaded with welding gear and plasma cutters for a contract to reinforce the colony's crumbling mining scaffolds, massive structures that held the weight of the volcano's inner chambers but were buckling under years of neglect. A freelance welder by trade, Rin had spent years traveling the galaxy, fusing together the broken bones of starships, mining rigs, and orbital stations, his hands steady even in the most hazardous conditions. He'd seen his share of injustice on fringe worlds, corporate exploitation, pirate raids, and the casual cruelty that flourished in lawless outposts. But this parading a vulnerable woman through a crowd, exposed and pelted with garbage, stirred a deep-seated fury in him, a reminder of the stories his mother told of Earth's labor wars where dignity was the first casualty. Without a second thought, Rin shrugged off his heavy utility coat, a rugged garment woven from thermal-resistant fibers and lined with pockets full of welding tools. It had cost him a month's wages on a core world station, custom-fitted for extreme environments, but in that moment its value paled against the need to act. Enough of this barbarism, he declared, his voice a low rumble that carried over the jeers, laced with an authority born from countless negotiations in hostile territories. The nearest guards hesitated, surprised by the humans' boldness, their grips tightening on their weapons. "Stay out of this, human," hissed Grak, the reptilian guard, his baton crackling with energy as he stepped forward. "This is colony justice." Rin ignored him, focusing instead on Kalia. He draped the coat around her shoulders with gentle precision, ensuring it covered her fully, the warm fabric a stark contrast to the chill of her exposure. It smelled of welding flux leather and the faint, earthy scent of distant worlds, comforting in its humanity. "You're okay now," he whispered, his green eyes meeting her amber ones with unwavering reassurance. "I won't let them hurt you anymore. Stay close." The crowd's energy shifted uneasily, some jeers died down, replaced by murmurs of confusion or even reluctant admiration. A few miners, their consciences pricked, began to drift away, suddenly uncomfortable with their role in the spectacle. Torrin Scowl's cold grin faltered, his scar pulling tight as he descended from the platform, his exosuit whirring softly with each step. "This alien is a convicted traitor," he bellowed, his voice amplified by a hidden comm unit echoing off the stall walls. "She's been sentenced for sabotaging our operations. Interfering carries severe penalties, fines, imprisonment, or worse." Rin turned to face him, his stance unyielding, one hand resting protectively on Kalia's shoulder. "I'm invoking Galactic Accord Section 12, he countered smoothly, his knowledge of interstellar law surprising even himself. It was something he'd picked up during a stint with a legal aid convoy. The right to challenge unjust sentencing on humanitarian grounds. As a guild-registered welder with credentials from the Interstellar Engineering Guild, I'm filing for an immediate review. Touch her again, and I'll have Confederacy auditors swarming this rock faster than a plasma torch cuts steel." Torrin's eyes narrowed, his mind calculating the risks. Humans were unpredictable variables in colonial politics, tenacious, resourceful, and often backed by powerful guilds that could tie up operations in red tape for months. Rin's mention of the Confederacy, the overarching galactic authority that enforced accords across systems, was a bluff he couldn't immediately call without evidence, but it sowed doubt among the guards. Grak and his fellows exchanged uneasy glances, their batons lowering slightly. Crowd, sensing the shift, began to thin further, the thrill of the shamming evaporating under the weight of potential off-world intervention. "Fine," Torrin spat finally, his voice dripping with venom. "Take them both to holding. We'll sort this at the tribunal tomorrow. But mark my words, human, you've just made a powerful enemy." As the guards moved in more cautiously now, Rin positioned himself between them and Kalia, guiding her gently but firmly. "Stay with me," he murmured. "We'll get through this." They were marched through the bazaar under guard, the remaining onlookers whispering as they passed. Kalia, wrapped in the coat, felt a flicker of hope amid the despair, her trembling easing slightly under Rin's protective presence. The holding cell was a grim affair, a small windowless chamber in the colony's security outpost, its walls reinforced with volcanic rock and durasteel, reeking of sulfur from nearby vents and the faint rust of neglected maintenance. The door clanged shut behind them, leaving them in dim, artificial light from a flickering overhead panel. Once alone, Kalia sank onto a hard bench, pulling the coat tighter around her like a lifeline. Her amber eyes, still glistening with unshed tears, met Rin's. Why did you risk everything for a stranger? She asked, her voice hoarse from the ordeal laced with the melodic accent of Silvaris, a world where speech flowed like wind through leaves. Rin leaned against the opposite wall, crossing his arms over his chest, his green eyes steady. Because what they were doing out there is flat out wrong. No one deserves to be treated like that, no matter the accusation. Name's Rin Calder, by the way, welder by trade, fixing scaffolds and ships across the galaxy and sometimes sticking my nose where it doesn't belong. He offered a small, reassuring smile, trying to lighten the mood. A faint, grateful smile touched Kalia's lips, the first crack in her armor of humiliation. Kalia Vren, archaeobotanist from Silvaris. I came here to study the volcanic flora. These caves hold plants unlike anything in known space, bioluminescent species that could heal diseases or stabilize failing atmospheres. But I discovered something else, Torin Scal's smuggling ring. He's harvesting rare specimens illegally, selling them to pirates and collectors. When I gathered evidence, he framed me as a spy to silence me. Rin's jaw tightened, his mind already turning over possibilities. Sounds like standard colonial corruption. Greed turns people into monsters. We need that evidence. It's our ticket out of this mess. Kalia nodded, her expression gaining strength. It's on a data shard encrypted and hidden in my field kit at the research camp outside the colony, but Torin's guards are probably swarming the site by now. Rin's eyes sparkled with determination. Then we'll have to be smarter than them. First things first, getting you out of here. I've got tools in my kit that can bypass basic locks like this one. He glanced at the door, assessing the mechanism. As they waited for nightfall, their conversation deepened. Kalia spoke of Silvaris's endless forests, where trees sang in the wind and knowledge was passed through living vines. Rin shared tales of Earth's turbulent history, its oceans that crashed with untamed fury and the human spirit's refusal to break. An unspoken connection began to form, born of shared vulnerability and mutual respect. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting the colony in an eerie red glow from lava vents, Rin used a concealed multitool, a versatile gadget he'd modified himself, to bypass the cell's magnetic lock. A soft click and they were free, slipping into the shadows of the service alleys that snaked behind the bazaar. Patrols roamed the main paths, their flashlights cutting through the ash-laden air, but Rin's knowledge of outpost layouts guided them safely. Kalia's bare feet protested against the rough terrain, but she pushed on, the coat her only shield against the cooling night. They reached Rin's rented quarters, a cluttered prefab shack on the colony's outskirts, surrounded by stacks of welding rods and plasma cutters. It's not much, Rin said, keying open the door with a biometric scan, but it's secure, no surveillance feeds. Inside, the space was a welder's haven, workbenches littered with slag and tools, holographic schematics of scaffolds flickering in the air, and a small cot in the corner. Kalia hesitated at the threshold, overwhelmed by his kindness. Thank you for the coat, for everything. I don't know how to repay you. Rin waved it off, rummaging for a medical kit. No repayment needed. Let's get those bruises looked at and find you some clothes. My spare jumpsuit should work. He turned away respectfully as she changed, busying himself with brewing a hot stimulant from his rations. Dressed in the oversized garment, its fabric rough but comforting, Kalia sat, sipping the drink. On Silvaris, nudity isn't inherently shameful. Our clans celebrate the body as part of nature, but being forced, exposed as punishment. That's what strips away your essence. Rin nodded thoughtfully, handing her a compress for her feet. Humans have complicated rules about it too, cultural hang-ups from old religions and societies. Context matters a lot. What they did was about power, not justice. Their talk flowed into the night, bridging their worlds. Kalia's curiosity about human resilience sparked against Rin's admiration for her scholarly depth. A subtle tension built, not just from the danger but from an emerging attraction, her graceful poise contrasting his rugged charm. A sudden calm alert shattered the peace. Torin had issued a colony-wide bounty, complete with hollow images of them both. We need that data shard now, Rin said, checking his wrist scanner for patrol patterns. Kalia agreed, but as they planned their next move, she placed a slender hand on his arm. On Silvaris, an act like yours creates a root bond, a sacred debt of trust and protection. It's not taken lightly. Rin's grin was warm, his green eyes softening. Call it what you want, but I'm in this because it's right. No bonds or debts, just partnership. Yet their shared glance held longer, a spark of something deeper igniting in the dim light. They ventured out in the pre-dawn haze, the air thick with swirling ash that cloaked their movements. Kalia led the way to the research camp, a cluster of prefab tents and sensor arrays at the edge of a vast volcanic crater where glowing plants pulsed like living stars in the darkness. The shards in my field kit hidden under a false panel designed to look like rock samples, she whispered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. But as they approached, floodlights snapped on, illuminating armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Torin's men had anticipated them. Rin's mind raced, drawing on years of improvisation. He spotted a nearby generator humming with power and rigged it with a small plasma charge from his welding kit, a controlled overload that sparked a dazzling explosion of sparks and smoke, drawing the patrols away in confusion. Seizing the moment, they darted into the camp. Kalia retrieved the shard from her kit, its crystalline surface glowing faintly with encrypted data. This has everything: transaction logs, buyer IDs, even samples of the smuggled flora, she said, her amber eyes alight with triumph. But as they turned to flee, Kalia's foot caught on a loose cable, twisting her ankle with a sharp crack of pain. She stifled a cry, but Rin was there in an instant, scooping her up with effortless strength. "I've got you," he assured, carrying her through the shadows as alarms began to wail. They made it back to the shack just as dawn's first light pierced the ash clouds, the shard secure in Rin's pocket. As Kalia rested her ankle elevated on a crate, Rin analyzed the data on his portable console. "Solid proof, links torn to pirate syndicates across 3 sectors. We transmit this to the guild and he's finished, arrests, asset freezes, the works." Kalia's eyes softened with gratitude. "You've given me more than escape, Rin. You've restored my faith in kindness across the stars." He met her gaze, the air between them charged with unspoken emotion. "And you've shown me that even in a place like this, there's beauty worth fighting for." Their fingers brushed as he handed her the console, a simple touch that lingered, kindling a warmth that had nothing to do with the volcanic heat outside. But peace was short-lived. Rin's scanner picked up approaching signals, Torin's forces closing in. Worse, the data revealed a betrayal. Kalia's assistant, a wiry cyborg named Vex 3, had been feeding information to Torin for a share of the profits. "Vex was like a sibling to me," Kalia said, her voice breaking with hurt. "We shared discoveries, late-night theories." Rin's expression hardened, his protective instincts flaring. "Betrayal cuts deep, but we'll handle it together." They gathered their gear, slipping into the colony's geothermal vents, a network of steaming tunnels that snaked beneath the surface, used for maintenance but rarely patrolled. The heat was intense, waves of humid air making their clothes cling, but it provided cover. As they crawled through narrow passages, pressed close in the confined spaces, Kalia distracted from the discomfort by asking about Earth. "Tell me more. Your world storms the way the seas roar." Rin chuckled, his voice echoing softly. "Earth's a wild place, thunder that shakes the ground, waves taller than buildings. You'd fit right in with your plant knowledge. Our forests are alive in ways that rival Silvaris." She smiled, her hand finding his in the dim light. "And I'd show you our glowing groves where vines weave stories into the night." In one particularly tight section, their bodies aligned unavoidably, the proximity amplifying the growing pull between them, a mix of adrenaline, shared purpose, and undeniable chemistry. Emerging near the bazaar under the cover of a fresh ash storm, they spotted Vex 3 conferring with Torin's men, its mechanical limbs gesturing animatedly. "We need to confront them," Rin said, his voice resolute. But Kalia hesitated, her mind piecing together more from the data. "There's worse, the plants Torin smuggles. One species is a potential bioweapon, spores that could induce mass hallucinations or worse, wipe out colonies if released improperly. He's not just greedy, he's dangerous." The stakes escalated, transforming their escape into a mission to avert catastrophe. They infiltrated Torin's storage vault, a fortified cavern hidden behind a false stall in the bazaar, dodging laser tripwires and automated sentries with Rin's welding skills and Kalia's knowledge of the terrain. Inside, amid crates of illicit goods, they found the bioplant, a pulsating mass of vines and glowing pods, its spores humming with latent energy. Rin neutralized it with a hastily mixed coolant spray from his kit, the plant withering safely, but the action triggered alarms, summoning guards. Frantic skirmish ensued, guards firing stun bolts that scorched the air, Rin dodging and countering with improvised EMP grenades that shorted their weapons, while Kalia hacked a security turret, reprogramming it to target the enforcers. Blasts echoed through the vault, crates exploding in showers of debris. In the chaos, Vex 3 cornered them, its optic sensors glowing red. "You organics are relics in this galaxy," it sneered, extending a blade arm. Kalia's voice cracked with betrayal. "Why Vex?" "We were partners," the cyborg's voice modulator crackled. "Torin offered upgrades, power beyond your fragile biology. Survival demands adaptation." Rin lunged, deploying a full EMP pulse that fried Vex 3 circuits, leaving it slumped and sparking. They fled the vault, hearts pounding, transmitting the shard's data to the guild via Rin's encrypted comm as they ran. Torin himself pursued an armored hoversled, its engines roaring through the lava fields outside the colony. Dodging eruptions of molten rock, Kalia manned a makeshift turret on Rin's skiff, her shots precise despite the jolts. "For Silvaris," she cried, a blast disabling Torin's sled, sending it crashing into a chasm. Captured and bound, Torin spat curses. "This isn't overhuman, my contacts will bury you." Rin smirked, securing him. "For you it is, the guild's on its way." As enforcers arrived, summoned by the transmission, calm began to settle over the colony. Kalia turned to Rin, her amber eyes shining. "What comes next?" He pulled her close, the tension of battle giving way to tenderness. "Us exploring the stars one world at a time." Their kiss, sapphire skin against tan, sealed a bond forged in the fires of Vexar 9. But faint whispers from the data hinted at a larger syndicate, shadows that promised more adventures and dangers ahead. The aftermath of Torin Scal's downfall rippled through Vexar 9 like aftershocks from a deep core quake, shaking the foundations of the colony's fragile order. The bazaar, once a hub of chaotic commerce and whispered deals, now buzzed with a different energy, relief mixed with uncertainty. Miners who had long suffered under Torin's iron rule gathered in small groups, sharing stories of his extortions and abuses, their voices louder now that the fear had lifted. The air still carried the heavy scent of volcanic ash and molten ore, but there was a subtle shift. The dual suns seemed less oppressive, casting a warmer glow on the ramshackle stalls as traders cautiously resumed business, wary of the Confederacy enforcers who had descended upon the outpost like a swarm of regulatory drones. Hollow screens flickered with official announcements. Investigations ongoing, interim leadership appointed, and promises of fairer resource distribution that elicited skeptical grunts from the hardened workers. In the midst of this transition, Kalia Vren and Rin Calder found a momentary haven in Rin's prefab shack, its walls now reinforced with hasty welds he'd applied during their brief respite. The data shard's transmission to the Interstellar Engineering Guild had worked like a charm. Within hours, a Confederacy patrol vessel had orbited the planet, deploying teams to secure Torren's assets and interrogate his accomplices. Vex 3, the traitorous cyborg, had been deactivated and shipped off for forensic analysis, its memory banks yielding even more evidence of the smuggling ring's reach. But as the dust settled, Kalia couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. Shard had hinted at a larger syndicate, shadowy figures operating from core worlds, using colonies like Vexar 9 as disposable pawns in a galactic game of power and profit. Seated on the cot, her ankle wrapped in a makeshift splint from Rin's medical supplies, Kalia pored over a holographic projection of the data, her amber eyes narrowing at encrypted fragments that resisted her decryption algorithms. "There's more here," she murmured, her jet-black hair falling forward as she leaned in. References to a Nexus consortium, a network of buyers who aren't just collectors. They're weaponizing the flora, turning natural defenses into bioagents for corporate wars. Rin, hunched over his workbench, paused in the midst of calibrating a plasma cutter, its blue arc flickering like a captured star. His tan hands, scarred from countless welds, moved with practiced precision, but his green eyes flicked to her with concern. As a welder, he'd built his life on joining broken things, fusing metals under extreme heat, creating strength from fragility. Now he found himself applying that mindset to their situation. If that's true, taking down Torren was just the first seam. We need to trace these leads before the syndicate covers their tracks. He wiped sweat from his brow, the shack's air recycler humming inefficiently against the rising heat. Kalia nodded, deactivating the hollow with a wave. The consortium's hub is on Zeta Prime, a neutral station in the outer rim, but getting there means leaving Vexar 9 and with bounties potentially still active. Her voice trailed off, the weight of their bond pressing on her. In the quiet hours after the chase, they'd shared more than words, a tentative exploration of the attraction that had sparked amid danger. Her sapphire skin against his tanned arms, the way his steady presence anchored her chaos, it was new, exhilarating, and terrifying. Rin set down the cutter and crossed to her, kneeling so their eyes were level. "We're in this together, remember, root bond or whatever you call it. I've got contacts in the guild who can arrange discreet transport, but first we need to make sure the colony's safe. Torren's lieutenants might try a last-ditch play." His hand cupped her cheek, thumb tracing the line of a fatting bruise, a gesture that sent warmth through her despite the pain. Before she could respond, a sharp rap echoed at the door, 3 quick knocks, a signal from one of the miners who'd witnessed the confrontation. Rin opened it cautiously, revealing a grizzled foreman named Jorek, his scales dusted with ore, eyes wide with alarm. "Trouble brewing in the lower shafts," Jorek hissed, glancing over his shoulder. "Some of Torren's loyalists are sabotaging the scaffold, setting charges to collapse the main vein. If it goes, half the colony's buried." Rin's face hardened. "Why now?" Jorek shrugged. "Revenge or covering evidence. Confederacy's focused on the surface, they don't know the tunnels like we do." Kalia stood, wincing at her ankle but determined. "The bioweapon spores, if they're stored down there, a collapse could release them. We have to stop it." The trio moved swiftly through the colony's underbelly, descending into the mining tunnels via a service lift that groaned under their weight. The air grew thicker, laced with the metallic bite of drilled rock and the faint glow of bioluminescent fungi clinging to the walls, remnants of the flora Kalia had come to study. Rin's welding expertise proved invaluable. He spotted weakened supports along the way, pausing to reinforce them with quick plasma seals, the tool's hum echoing like a warning. "These beams are tampered with," he noted, his green eyes scanning the shadows. "Someone's been here recently." Deeper in, the tunnels branched into a labyrinth of shafts, the rumble of distant machinery masking their footsteps. Jorek led them to a restricted chamber, a hidden cache where Torren had stashed his illicit harvests. But as they approached, voices echoed, harsh whispers in a mix of languages, accompanied by the beep of arming explosives. Kalia's heart raced. She recognized one voice, Lyra, Torren's second-in-command, a sly insectoid with mandibles that clicked in agitation. Peering from cover, they saw Lyra and 3 henchmen planting charges around crates of glowing plants, the bioweapon among them. "When this blows, the evidence vanishes and the blueskin takes the blame," Lyra chittered. Rin signaled silently, his welder's instincts kicking in. "I can fuse the charges, detonators, make 'em dud, cover me." Jorek and Kalia provided distraction, lobbing rocks to draw attention while Rin crept forward, plasma cutter set to low intensity. The tool's arc danced across wires, melting connections with surgical precision. But one henchman spotted him, firing a bolt that grazed Rin's shoulder, searing flesh. Pain flared, but he rolled behind a crate, returning fire with a stun setting from his multi-tool. Chaos erupted, blasts lighting the chamber, shadows dancing wildly. Kalia, ignoring her ankle, hacked a nearby console to activate emergency seals, isolating the spores. Jorek tackled a guard, his strength born of years in the mines prevailing. Lyra lunged at Kalia, mandibles snapping, but Rin intervened, welding a metal beam to pin the insectoid. "It's over," he growled, binding Lyra as Confederacy alerts blared from their comms. With the saboteurs subdued and the threat neutralized, they emerged to the surface, the colony's miners cheering their return. The Confederacy team, alerted by Jorak, took custody, praising Rin's quick thinking. Your welding saved lives, a officer noted, but as adrenaline faded, Kalia tended Rin's wound, her touch lingering. You keep saving me, she whispered. He grinned through the pain. Partnership right now about Zeta Prime. The decision crystallized. They'd pursue the syndicate, turning their bond into a quest. En route to the orbital station aboard a guild shuttle, the stars streaked past like promises. Kalia, her ankle healing, explored the ship's hydroponics bay, her botanist soul delighting in the artificial ecosystems. Rin joined her, sharing stories of welding orbital rings under zero-G, his hands demonstrating techniques that fascinated her. It's like fusing worlds, she said, her amber eyes reflecting the grow lights. Their connection deepened in quiet moments, shared meals where flavors from their homes blended, laughter over cultural quirks. One evening in the dim cabin, Kalia traced his scars. Each one a story, he nodded. This from a hull breach on Titan's station, that from a faulty arc on Mars. Her fingers lingered, sparking heat. On Silvaris, scars are badges of growth. She leaned in, their kiss igniting like a plasma flare, bodies exploring differences and similarities in the weightless embrace. Zeta Prime loomed, a glittering hub of trade and intrigue, its spires piercing the void. Docking amid freighters and luxury yachts, they disguised themselves, Kalia with a pigmentation mask dulling her blue skin to neutral gray, Rin in nondescript worker gear. The station's corridors pulsed with life, merchants hawking neural implants, spies whispering in shadowed alcoves, the air scented with exotic spices and ozone from energy fields. Their lead, a consortium contact named Vara Voss, a elusive trader in biotech. Infiltrating her warehouse required Rin's skills. He welded a false panel for entry, the arc silent under suppressors. Inside, crates hummed with life, stolen flora from dozens of worlds. Kalia scanned, confirming links to Vexar 9, but alarms triggered. Voss's security advanced droids with laser grids. A chase ensued through the station's underlevels, dodging patrols and leaping across maintenance catwalks. Rin fused a bridge to block pursuers, his tool a lifeline. They cornered Voss in her office, data drives in hand. You're meddling in forces beyond you, she sneered, a holographic syndicate map flickering. Interrogation revealed the next layer, a core world auction where the bioweapon would sell to the highest bidder. Escaping with the drives, they evaded capture, their bond tested and strengthened. We're deeper now, Kalia said, breathless. Rin pulled her close. Good thing I weld strong. The journey continued, adventures unfolding across systems, their love a fusion of hearts in the galactic forge. The orbital station Zeta Prime hung in the void like a colossal jewel forged from starlight and ambition, its sprawling spires and docking rings extending outward in a symphony of engineered chaos that defied the empty blackness of space. Constructed centuries ago as a neutral hub for interstellar trade, it had evolved into a labyrinthine metropolis where fortunes were made and lost in the blink of an eye, where diplomats rubbed shoulders with smugglers, and where the line between legality and shadow blurred into non-existence. The station's outer hull gleamed with a mosaic of holographic advertisements, flashing promises of neural enhancements, exotic vacations on pleasure worlds, and rare artifacts from forgotten civilizations, while massive cargo bays hummed with the constant arrival and departure of freighters laden with goods from across the galaxy. Inside, the atmosphere was a heady mix of recycled air scented with 1,000 alien spices, the ozone tang of energy shields, and the underlying musk of unwashed travelers from distant rims. Gravity plating ensured a stable down, but the station's rotation created subtle Coriolis effects that could disorient newcomers, making every step feel like a negotiation with physics itself. Kalia Vren and Rin Calder's guild shuttle docked at one of the outer berths with a gentle thud, the clamps engaging as the airlock cycled. The journey from Vexar 9 had been a brief but intense interlude, a few days of hyperspace travel that allowed them to catch their breath after the frenzy of the colony's upheaval. During those hours, confined to the shuttle's modest quarters, their bond had deepened in ways both subtle and profound. Kalia, her ankle nearly healed thanks to the ship's automed unit, had spent time in the hydroponics bay, tending to sample plants she'd salvaged from the bioweapon cache, tiny, glowing seedlings that pulsed with life, reminders of her homeworld's lush vitality. Rin, ever the practical welder, had busied himself repairing minor hull stresses on the shuttle, his plasma cutter singing as he fused microfractures, but he'd stolen moments to join her, sharing stories of his nomadic life, welding massive orbital rings around gas giants, patching starship hulls mid-battle with pirate fleets, and the quiet satisfaction of making something whole again. Their conversations had woven a tapestry of intimacy, bridging the gaps between their species. On Silvaris, Kalia had confided one evening as they shared a meal of replicated Earth-style stew and silver and nectar fruits in the dim glow of the cabin lights. Bonds formed slowly like vines entwining over seasons. But with you it's like a sudden bloom, unexpected, vibrant. Rin had chuckled, his green eyes crinkling at the corners, his tan hand covering hers. Humans rush in, yeah, we weld hot and fast, hopping at holds, but this, he gestured between them. This feels solid, like a perfect fusion, no weak points. That night, in the privacy of their shared bunk, their exploration had turned physical, a tender discovery of differences, her sapphire skin cooler and smoother than his warm, scarred flesh, The way her bioluminescent markings faintly glowed in response to his touch like stars awakening, his steady strength contrasting her graceful agility. It was a fusion of bodies and souls, laughter mingling with gasps as they navigated the unfamiliar, finding harmony in the chaos. But now, stepping onto Zeta Prime's bustling concourse, the weight of their mission pressed down anew. Disguised to blend in, Kalia with a temporary pigmentation mask that dulled her vibrant blue to a mundane gray, her jet black hair hidden under a hooded cloak, and Rin in plain worker overalls that concealed his welding tools, they moved through the crowds like ghosts. The station teemed with life. Hulking quadrupeds from the Gorath clusters bartering for fuel cells, sleek androids negotiating data trades, and humans in corporate suits flashing credentials at security checkpoints. Overhead, drone messengers zipped by delivering packages, while holographic news feeds blared updates on galactic events. The latest Confederacy crackdown on pirate enclaves, fluctuations in mineral prices, and whispers of escalating tensions between core worlds. Their target, Vara Voss, the consortium contact gleaned from Lyra's interrogation back on Vexar 9. Voss was a notorious biotech trader, operating from a high-security warehouse in the station's industrial sector, a maze of storage vaults and loading docks where cargo containers stacked like monolithic tombs. According to the drives they'd stolen from her office, wait, no, they hadn't infiltrated yet, that was the plan. Rin's guild contacts had provided a layout, access via maintenance tunnels guarded by automated turrets and biometric locks. We'll need a distraction, Rin muttered as they navigated the throngs, his hand brushing Kalia's for reassurance. I can weld a false panel for entry, but those droids are top-tier laser grids that could cut us in half. Kalia nodded, her masked face impassive but her amber eyes concealed behind tinted lenses sharp with calculation. The flora data on the shard includes countermeasures. Some plants emit spores that disrupt electronics. If we can synthesize a small batch. Her botanist mind raced, drawing on years of fieldwork, dissecting alien ecosystems on storm-ravaged planets, cataloging species that could heal or harm. They ducked into a side alcove, a quiet nook amid the chaos, where Rin pulled out his portable console to simulate the synthesis. Risky, he said, fingers flying over the holokeys. But if it shorts the grids without alerting security, we're in. Hours passed in preparation, holed up in a cheap rental pod overlooking the docking rings, a cramped space with a viewport showing ships coming and going like migratory birds. Kalia mixed the spore compound using salvaged lab gear from the shuttle, her hands steady as she calibrated concentrations. Rin watched, admiration swelling, her precision mirrored his own in welding, each a craftsman in their field. You're incredible, he said softly, pulling her into an embrace once the mixture set. Botany's your plasma cutter, cutting through problems with elegance, she laughed, the sound muffled against his shoulder. And you're my anchor, holding it all together. Night cycle on the station brought dimmed lights and thinned crowds, the perfect window for infiltration. They approached the warehouse sector via service lifts, the air growing cooler and more industrial, scented with lubricant and charged particles. Rin's multi-tool made short work of an access hatch, welding it open with a hushed arc that sealed seamlessly behind them. Inside the tunnels, conduits hummed and distant machinery clanked like a mechanical heartbeat. Kalia released the spores, a fine mist that shimmered briefly before dispersing. Alarms flickered but died, the laser grid sputtering offline. The warehouse loomed, vast chambers stacked with crates, some humming with cryogenic seals preserving biosamples. They crept through shadows, Rin's scanner picking up life signs, Voss and guards. But as they neared her office, a trap sprung, hidden sensors activated, flooding the area with knockout gas. Kalia's mask filtered it, but Rin coughed, vision blurring. Ambush, he rasped, welding a barrier from fallen debris as guards swarmed armored mercs with energy rifles. Gunfire lit the darkness, bolts scorching crates. Kalia dragged Rin to cover, her heart pounding. Stay with me. She returned fire with a borrowed stun pistol, her shots accurate from silver and hunting training. Rin recovered, fusing a guard's weapon mid-shot, the metal melting into useless slag. They fought back-to-back, a synchronized dance, her agility dodging blasts, his strength improvising weapons from the environment, welding pipes into barricades, shorting droid circuits with targeted arcs. Voss emerged, elegant figure in flowing robes, her face a mask of cybernetic enhancements glowing coldly. Intruders, she sneered, activating a force field. You think taking Torin down matters? The consortium is eternal. A fierce exchange followed, Voss unleashing drones that swarmed like insects. Kalia used remaining spores to jam their sensors, while Rin welded a crane arm to smash them. Cornered, Voss bargained, join us, your skills botany and welding could command fortunes. They refused, subduing her with a combined takedown, Kalia's hack overriding the field, Rin's weld sealing her escape. Data drives secured, they fled as station security converged, alerted by the commotion. Back in their pod, panting and bruised, they decrypted the files. An auction on Corvex III, Kalia gasped. The bioweapons the prize, buyers from rival corporations. Rin bandaged a wound, pulling her close. Then that's our next stop, but first. Their kiss was fierce, a reaffirmation amid peril. Corvex III awaited, a glittering casino world of opulence and vice, where the auction would unfold in hidden vaults beneath neon-lit spires. En route they trained, Kalia teaching Rin about biothreats, he showing her welding basics. Intimacy grew, nights entangled, days planning. A subplot emerged. A stowaway informant from Zeta Prime, a young mechanic named Tira, who joined their cause after witnessing Voss's cruelty. Tira's skills complemented Rin's, adding humor and tension as she bantered with the couple. On Corvex disguised as high rollers, they infiltrated the auction lavish halls with floating chandeliers, guests in extravagant attire. Bids soared for artifacts, but the bioweapon lot drew sharks, corporate execs with private armies. A twist, the weapon wasn't just spores, it was a sentient plant capable of evolving. Kalia felt a kinship, horrified at its weaponization. Action peaked, syndicate agents spotted them, sparking a casino brawl, chandeliers crashing, gamblers fleeing. Rin welded doors shut, Kalia released counterspores to neutralize threats. They stole the plant, escaping in a high-speed chase through aerial traffic, Tira piloting a borrowed speeder. Victorious but hunted, they hid on a nearby moon, the plant safe. Relationships deepened. Kalia and Rin confessed love under alien stars, Tira becoming family. But the syndicate's reach extended, a massive fleet approaching, signaling war. The saga continued, bonds unbreakable, adventures endless. The moon of Lurath IV, a desolate orb cloaked in a thin, shimmering atmosphere, hung in the shadow of Corvex III, its jagged crystalline cliffs and luminescent pools reflecting the distant neon glow of the casino world. The air carried a faint tang of ionized minerals, remnants of ancient meteor impacts that had seeded the moon with rare elements, making it a prospector's dream left untouched due to its unstable tectonics. The ground trembled faintly, a reminder of the moon's restless core, as Kalia, Rin Calder, and their new ally Tira huddled in a shallow cave carved into a cliff face, its walls glinting with opalescent quartz under their portable luminary. The sentient plant, rescued from the auction's chaos, rested in a sealed biocontainer at Kalia's side, its bioluminescent fronds pulsing softly as if aware of its precarious freedom. Their stolen speeder, a sleek but battered model, lay hidden under a thermal tarp outside, its engine still warm from the high-speed chase through Corvex II's aerial traffic. Inside the cave, the air was cool but heavy with tension, broken only by dripping mineral-rich water from stalactites. Kalia knelt beside the plant, her masked face, dulled to gray to avoid detection, etched with awe and concern as she scanned the container. Her amber eyes, hidden behind tinted lenses, flickered with data. The plant's neural activity was extraordinary, its biochemistry shifting in response to stimuli. "This isn't just sentient," she whispered, her silver and accent melodic even through exhaustion. "It's evolving, adapting to stress, maybe communicating. On Silvaris, we have legends of thinking flora, but this is a mind in roots and leaves." Her jet-black hair, freed from the cloak and loosely tied back, shimmered with bioluminescent beads, a reclaiming of her identity. Rin, leaning against the cave wall, adjusted the bandage on his laser-burned shoulder, his sun-bleached hair matted with sweat, green eyes scanning for pursuit. As a welder, he was used to high-stakes jobs, fusing hull plates in zero-G, sealing reactor leaks, but this mission tested his limits. The Syndicate's shadow loomed, and the fleet they'd spotted made his jaw tight. "If that thing can think," he said, nodding at the plant, "it's a bigger liability than we thought. The consortium won't stop. That fleet's too big for retrieval. They're planning something massive." He checked his plasma cutter's charge, its hum a comfort in the uncertainty. Tira, the young mechanic from Zeta Prime, sat cross-legged, tinkering with a salvaged drone fragment. Her violet hair caught the luminary's glow, her coveralls patched from years in station underbellies. "Fleet's not just consortium," she said, rewiring circuits. "Hack their chatter, coordinating with Helix Dynamics, a rogue corp planning to weaponize the plant for a coup on Coruscant 7. Big players, big credits." Her casual tone belied her trembling fingers. Kalia's scanner confirmed the drives from Voss mentioned a contract for spore deployment on Coruscant 7, paralyzing infrastructure for a takeover. "This is terrorism," she said, tightening her grip on the container. "We can't hide, we must stop the buyers." Rin mapped logistics like a weld. "The auction was a front, they're moving the real deal to Nithra, a shadow port in the outer veil. We intercept the buyers, destroy the bioweapons." To Tira, "Can you make the speeder space-worthy?" Tira grinned, pulling a power cell from the drone. "2 hours it'll purr, but we need fuel and nav updates. Nithra's off-grid." Kalia, torn by her duty to protect life, discovered the plant responded to frequencies, a way to neutralize its spores. Rin suggested a contact, Jessicor, a welding partner with a salvage yard in the Vale. "She's tricky, plays both sides," he warned. They prepared. Tira rigged the speeder, Kalia synthesized spores, Rin welded the cave entrance. At dawn, Shade's Predator-class ship entered orbit. They launched, Tira's piloting dodging lasers through asteroid fields. Jess's yard, orbiting a gas giant, was a sprawl of wrecked ships. Jessa, silver-streaked and scarred, bartered routes for Rin's welding. A consortium trapped by her second-in-command was thwarted, cementing her loyalty. Nithra's shadow port, buried in an asteroid belt, hosted the underground auction. Disguised as traders, they infiltrated, Tira looping feeds, Rin welding an exit. The sentient plant spores were on display, horrifying Kalia. Her frequency device destabilized them, sparking chaos. Mercs fired, the arena erupted. Shade attacked, but Tira's drone and Rin's welds neutralized him. Jess's crew covered their escape as the fleet bombarded the port. Safe on a hidden freighter, Kalia vowed to protect the plant. Rin, pulling her clothes, said, "We're rewriting the stars." Tira plodded ahead, their bond unbreakable, ready for the galaxy's next challenge. The hidden freighter, a battered relic of a bygone trade war named Stellar Wisp, drifted silently in the uncharted reaches of the outer veil, its hull cloaked by a patchwork of stealth plating that Rin had painstakingly welded into place during their escape from Nithra's shadow port. The ship loaned by Jessicor's salvage network was a labyrinth of cramped corridors, flickering control panels, and cargo holds stuffed with scavenged tech, its air thick with the scent of recycled oxygen, burnt wiring, and the faint organic musk of the sentient plant Kalia cradled in her arms. The Wisp's engines hummed at a low frequency, just enough to keep them adrift in the asteroid-strewn void, evading the Nexus Consortium's pursuing fleet. Beyond the viewport, the outer veil stretched infinitely, a cosmic tapestry of nebulae swirling in hues of violet and crimson, punctuated by the cold glint of distant stars and the occasional flare of a supernova remnant. It was a region where galactic law held no sway, where pirates, smugglers, and rogue corporations carved out their own empires among the wreckage of forgotten civilizations. Inside the Wisp's command bay, a dimly lit chamber cluttered with mismatched consoles and jury-rigged holoprojectors, Kalia Vren, Rin Calder, Tira, and Jessa Kor gathered around a flickering hollow table, its surface displaying a fragmented star map pieced together from the data drives stolen from Varavas. Kalia, her pigmentation mask removed to reveal her sapphire-blue skin, stood with a quiet intensity, her jet-black hair woven back into intricate silveran braids adorned with bioluminescent beads that pulsed faintly in rhythm with her heartbeat. The sentient plant, now nicknamed Luma for its glowing fronds, rested in its biocontainer beside her, its neural signals spiking on her scanner whenever she spoke to it, a phenomenon that both fascinated and unnerved her. Luma, responding to our presence, she said, her voice soft but carrying the melodic cadence of her homeworld. It's not just reacting to stimuli, it's learning, possibly even mimicking our emotions. If the consortium weaponizes more like it, entire systems could fall to psychological chaos. Her amber eyes, no longer hidden by lenses, flickered with a mix of determination and dread as she traced a glowing line on the map toward their next destination. Coruscant 7, the core world targeted by Helix Dynamics coup. Rin, his tan face smudged with welding soot, leaned over the table, his green eyes narrowing at the map's coordinates. His utility coat, patched from laser burns sustained in the Nithra skirmish, hung loosely over his wiry frame, its pockets still bristling with tools. As a welder, he'd spent his life fusing the galaxy's broken pieces, starship hulls, orbital scaffolds, even the occasional alien artifact, but this mission was a weld of a different kind, binding their fates in ways he hadn't anticipated. Coruscant 7, a fortress world, he said, his voice a low rumble tempered by years of shouting over plasma arcs. Sky cities, shielded districts, private armies for every corp. If Helix is staging a coup, they'll have the bioweapons secured in a vault deeper than Vexar 9 mines. We need to know their entry point, ports, sewers, or maybe a corporate spire. He tapped a console, pulling up schematics of the planet's infrastructure, his welder's mind already mapping entry seams like he would a hull repair. Tira, sprawled in a pilot's chair with her boots propped on the console, spun a micro-tool between her fingers, her violet hair catching the hollow's glow. At 20, her brash confidence masked a keen intellect honed in Zeta Prime's underbelly, where she'd rewired smugglers' ships and dodged enforcers since childhood. I cracked more of Voss's drives, she said, tossing a data chip onto the table. Helix is using a front some charity called Nova Relief to smuggle the spores in medical shipments. They're landing at Port Azura, a low-security dock in the lower districts. If we hit that, we can trace the cargo. Her grin was sharp, but her eyes darted to the viewport, wary of the fleet's shadow. Problem is, Shade's still out there. Their ship's cloaked, but my drone, picking up faint ion trails. They're close. Jessica, standing at the edge of the group, crossed her arms, her silver-streaked hair tied back to reveal a face etched with scars from a lifetime of welding and double-dealing. Her salvage yard had given them this ship, but her loyalty was hard-won, forged in the betrayal of her second-in-command back in the Vale. Shade, not your only worry, she said, her voice gravelly from years of shouting over salvage cranes. Coruscant 7, crawling with corporate spies, Nova Relief's got ties to the Planetary Council, bribe enough senators and they'll look the other way. You'll need more than a welder and a botanist to crack that world. My crew's ready, but we're not cheap. Her eyes flicked to Rin, a challenge in her smirk. You sure you want to dive this deep, Calder? Last time you owed me, I nearly lost a freighter. Rin met her gaze, unflinching. You got your yard's defenses welded, didn't you? We're square, but we need your contacts, someone who knows Coruscant 7 underbelly. He glanced at Kalia, a silent reassurance passing between them. Their bond, forged in the fires of Vexar 9 and tempered through Nithra's chaos, was a fusion stronger than any alloy he'd ever worked. Her touch, a brief brush of her hand against his, grounded him, a reminder of why he was here, not just for justice but for her. The plan took shape over hours of heated discussion, the hollow table littered with ration wrappers and empty stim cans. Tira's hack revealed Port Azura's schedules, pinpointing a Nova Relief shipment due in 3 days. Kalia proposed using Luma's frequencies to disrupt the spore's activation, potentially neutralizing them without destruction, a compromise that eased her ethical qualms. Rin suggested welding decoy containers to smuggle themselves into the port, while Jessa offered her crew's firepower and a contact, a disgraced ex-senator named Vren Thal who'd been exiled to the lower districts after crossing Helix Dynamics. He's bitter and broke, Jessa said. Perfect for spilling secrets if you can stomach his whining. As the Wisp charted a course through the Vale's asteroid fields, dodging ion storms and pirate beacons, the trio prepared. Kalia tended to Luma, her botanist's hands coaxing responses from its fronds, learning its language of pulses and chemical signals. She discovered it could emit microspores that disrupted neural implants, a potential weapon against Shade's cybernetics. Rin reinforced the freighter's hull, welding stealth plates to counter scans, his plasma cutters arc a steady rhythm that echoed his resolve. Tira upgraded the ship's systems, boosting its sensors to track Shade's cloaked ship, her banter keeping spirits high despite the looming threat. The journey wasn't without peril. A sudden ion storm battered the Wisp, forcing Rin to weld a breached panel mid-flight, his suit tethered to the hull as lightning arced around him. Kalia, monitoring from inside, guided him through comms, her voice a lifeline. "You're doing fine, Rin, just like fusing a scaffold," he chuckled, sparks flying. "Yeah, but scaffolds don't shoot back." Tira's quick rewiring stabilized the ship, but the storm revealed Shade's ship trailing them, its silhouette a menacing shadow against the nebula. Coruscant 7 loomed after days of tense travel, a planet of towering sky cities that pierced the clouds, their spires aglow with hollow billboards advertising luxury goods and corporate power. Port Azura, nestled in the lower districts, was a gritty contrast, a sprawl of rusted docks, neon-lit bars, and warehouses where smugglers thrived under the Council's blind eye. The Wisp docked under forged credentials, the crew disguised as cargo haulers. Kalia's pigmentation mask returned, her blue skin hidden to blend with the human-dominated crowds. Rin's welder's gear was concealed in a crate, his plasma cutter tucked into a hidden holster. Tira, posing as a tech vendor, carried her drone in a backpack, its sensors scanning for threats. Vrenthal's hideout was a dingy apartment in a crumbling tower, its walls stained with coolant leaks and graffiti. The ex-senator, a gaunt man with sunken eyes and a nervous tic, greeted them with suspicion, his voice slurred from cheap synth alcohol. "Helix ruined me," he spat, packing. "They control the council, the ports, everything. Nova Relief's just their mask. The spores are stored in Vault 17 under the central spire, biometric locks, droid guards, and a kill switch that'll release the spores if you trip it." He handed over a partial access code, bartered for a promise of passage off-world. The infiltration was a masterclass in coordination. Tira hacked port systems, diverting patrols, while Rin welded a service hatch for entry, his cutter silent under suppressors. Kalia used Luma's microspores to jam security sensors, her heart heavy as she manipulated the plant's essence. Inside Vault 17, they found crates of spores glowing ominously, but a trap awaited, Helix enforcers tipped off by an unknown traitor. A firefight erupted, lasers scorching walls, Rin welding barriers, Tira's drone disabling droids. Kalia activated Luma's frequencies, neutralizing the spores, but Shade appeared, their cybernetic arm launching neurodarts. In the chaos, Jessa's crew stormed in, their arrival a surprise orchestrated by her earlier comms. The battle turned, Rin fused Shade's weapon arm into slag, Tira hacked their implants, and Kalia shielded Luma. But the kill switch triggered, releasing a spore cloud. Kalia's quick thinking, using Luma's counter-frequencies, contained it, saving the city. They escaped with the neutralized spores, Vrenthal in tow, but the traitor's identity haunted them. Tira's drone logs revealed Jessa's lieutenant had sent a signal. Confronted, Jessa executed him, her face grim. "No more betrayals," she vowed. The Wisp fled Coruscant 7, the fleet in pursuit, but Tira's upgrades outran them. On a remote asteroid base, they regrouped, Luma safe. Kalia and Rin's love deepened, their nights a fusion of passion and purpose. Tira, now family, proposed a new plan, expose the Consortium's network galaxy-wide. The stars beckoned, their bond a weld against the coming storm. The asteroid base, a forgotten relic known as Outpost K-47, clung to the edge of a barren rock in the outer Vale's fringes, its pitted surface orbiting a dying star whose crimson light cast long, eerie shadows across the jagged landscape. The base itself was a warren of interconnected domes and tunnels, cobbled together from salvaged starship hulls, abandoned mining rigs, and reinforced durasteel plates, some bearing the scorch marks of battles long past. Its air recyclers wheezed, filling the chambers with a metallic tang overlaid with the faint, acrid bite of asteroid dust that never quite settled. Dimly lit by flickering lumen strips, the base's corridors echoed with the hum of outdated generators and the occasional clank of loose panels, a testament to its decades of neglect. Yet for Kalia, Rin Calder, Tira, and their unlikely ally Vrenthal, it was a sanctuary, a temporary shield from the Nexus Consortium's relentless pursuit and the looming threat of Helix Dynamics' galactic ambitions. Inside the central dome, a cavernous space once used for ore processing, the stellar Wisp rested on a makeshift landing pad, its stealth plating dulled by microabrasions from the Vale's asteroid fields. The freighter's hull, patched with Rin's precise welds, bore new scars from their escape from Coruscant 7, where they'd thwarted the bioweapons deployment but uncovered a deeper layer of the Consortium's network. The sentient plant Luma sat in its biocontainer on a crate, its bioluminescent fronds casting a soft, pulsing glow that bathed the dome in an otherworldly light. Kalia knelt beside it, her sapphire-blue skin shimmering faintly under the glow, her jet-black hair woven into tight silver and braids that glimmered with bioluminescent beads. each a symbol of her clan's reverence for life. Her amber eyes, sharp with focus, scanned the plant's neural readouts on a portable console, her botanist's mind piecing together its evolving behavior. Luma, adapting faster than I expected, she said, her voice soft but laced with urgency. It's mimicking our neural patterns, almost like it's trying to communicate intent. If we can decode its signals, we might find a way to counter the consortium's weaponized variants without destroying them. Her fingers brushed the container, a gesture of connection that elicited a faint pulse from Luma, as if acknowledging her presence. Rin, leaning against a rusted support beam, wiped sweat from his brow, his tan face smudged with welding flux. His utility coat, patched and singed, hung heavy with tools, plasma cutter, micro-welders, and a multi-tool he'd modified for hacking locks. As a welder, he'd spent years fusing the galaxy's broken edges, starship hulls, orbital scaffolds, mining rigs under collapse, but this mission was a weld of purpose and survival, binding him to Kalia and their cause. His green eyes flicked to her, a mix of admiration and resolve. If we can talk to that plant, it's a game changer, he said, his voice a steady rumble. But the consortium's not waiting. Those drives from Coruscant 7 point to a bigger operation, a production facility somewhere in the Veil. They're mass-producing spores, and if Tira's right about helix dynamics, they're planning to hit multiple worlds, not just Coruscant 7. He pulled up a holomap on the dome's central console, its flickering projection showing a cluster of uncharted systems deep in the Veil, one pulsing red, a potential location for the facility. Tira, sprawled across a salvage chair, spun a circuit probe between her fingers, her violet hair catching the hollow's glow. At 20, her brash demeanor hit a sharp mind honed in Zeta Prime's underbelly, where she'd rewired smugglers' ships and outsmarted enforcers. Her coveralls, patched with insulation tape, were stained with grease from upgrading the WISP systems. I cracked more of the drives, she said, tossing a data chip onto the console. The facility, on Valthar 3, a dead rock with underground labs, heavily guarded droid sentries, orbital cannons, the works. Helix is bankrolling it, but the consortium's calling the shots. They've got a new player too, someone called the Architect. No face, no species, just a codename. Sounds like the brains behind the spore weaponization. Her grin faltered, her eyes darting to the dome's entrance, where Vrenthal stood, his gaunt frame hunched over a cracked tablet. The ex-senator, his once polished demeanor eroded by years of exile and synth alcohol, paced nervously, his sunken eyes scanning the group. The Architect, he muttered, his voice slurred but edged with fear. I heard whispers on Coruscant 7. They're a shadow, someone who manipulates entire systems from behind the scenes. If they're involved, Valthar 3 not just a lab, it's a fortress. You'll need more than a welder's tricks to get in. His tick twitched, a reminder of his broken spirit, but his knowledge of corporate politics made him valuable if unreliable. Jessicor, who joined them after the Nithra raid, stood at the dome's edge, her silver-streaked hair pulled back to reveal scars that rivaled Rin's. Her salvage empire had given them the wisp, but her presence was a calculated risk. She thrived in gray zones, and her loyalty was tied to survival. Valthar 3, a death trap, she said, her gravelly voice cutting through the tension. I've run salvage ops in that sector, radiation storms, pirate nests, and now corporate mercs. My crew can get you close, but we need a plan that doesn't end with us as slag. She glanced at Rin, a smirk playing on her lips. You owe me big for this, Calder. Welding my yard's defenses didn't cover a suicide run. Rin met her smirk with a nod, his welder's pragmatism kicking in. We're not dying today, Jessa. We hit Valthar 3, destroy the labs, and broadcast the Architect's operation to the Confederacy. End this before it spreads. He turned to Kalia, his hand brushing hers, a silent vow. Their bond, forged in Vexar 9 fires, tempered through Nithra's chaos and solidified on Coruscant 7, was a fusion stronger than Durasteel. Her touch, cool and grounding, steadied him against the storm ahead. The plan coalesced over days of preparation, the dome a hive of activity. Tira upgraded the WISP stealth systems, weaving in cloaking algorithms to evade Valthar 3 orbital cannons. Kalia worked with Luma, decoding its neural signals to develop a counter-frequency that could disable weaponized spores, a breakthrough that eased her ethical burden, preserving life while neutralizing threats. Rin reinforced the freighter's hull, welding additional plating to withstand radiation storms, his plasma cutters arc a steady rhythm that echoed his focus. Vren, despite his fragility, provided intel on corporate security protocols, sketching layouts of Helix's labs from memory. Jess's crew, a motley band of salvagers and ex-mercs trained for combat, their loyalty secured by promises of a share in any salvage tech. The journey to Valthar 3 was fraught with peril. The Veil's radiation storms battered the Wisp, forcing Rin to weld breaches mid-flight, his suit tethered to the hull as plasma arcs danced in the void. Kalia's voice through comms was his anchor, guiding him through the chaos. Steady, Rin, just like fusing a scaffold. He grinned, sparks flying. Scaffolds don't try to fry you. Tira's piloting dodged pirate ambushes, her drone hacking their comms to sow confusion. But Shade, the relentless bounty hunter, trailed them, their cloaked ship a ghost in the sensors. A tense skirmish in an asteroid field saw Rin welding a decoy drone to draw Shade's fire, buying time for their escape. Valthar 3 loomed, a barren ash-gray rock shrouded in a haze of radiation, its surface scarred by automated mining rigs long abandoned. The underground labs, buried beneath a fortified citadel, pulsed with activity, their energy signatures betraying their purpose. The wisp landed in a concealed crater, its stealth plating masking their approach. Disguised as maintenance workers, Kalia's blue skin masked, Rin's tools hidden, Tira posing as a tech. Tira hacked the outer defenses, disabling sentries. Rin welded a service tunnel open, his cutter silent under suppressors, while Kalia deployed Luma's microspores to jam sensors. Inside, the labs were a nightmare of sterile corridors and glowing vats, where weaponized spores churned under artificial light. The architect's presence was felt, hollow messages directing operations, their voice distorted but commanding. A trap sprung, automated turrets and helix mercs ambushed them. The battle was brutal, lasers scorching walls, Rin welding barriers, Tira's drone shorting droids. Kalia used Luma's frequencies to disable spore vats, her heart torn by the destruction of life, even weaponized. The architect revealed themselves, a towering figure in a neural exosuit, their face obscured by a hollow mask. "Your insects against progress," they sneered, unleashing a spore cloud. Kalia's counter-frequencies contained it, but Shade attacked, their cybernetic arm launching EMP spikes. Rin fused Shade's implants, Tira hacked their systems, and Jess's crew provided cover. Vren, redeeming himself, sabotaged the lab's core, triggering a meltdown. They escaped as the Citadel collapsed, broadcasting the architect's data galaxy-wide. Safe on the Wisp, Kalia and Rin's love deepened, their bond a weld against the stars. Tira, now family, plotted their next move, dismantle the consortium's core. The galaxy awaited, their saga unending. Commander Martin Fleet stared at the navigation console, his gray-blue eyes reflecting the cold shimmer of stars streaking past the viewport. The cramped cabin of the stellar wraith felt suffocating, made smaller by the presence of the alien woman perched on the bunk. 34 days. 34 days since he'd extracted her from Serolith, a world of sapphire oceans and crystalline spires. 34 days of her sapphire blue skin catching the corner of his vision, her silver-violet hair flowing like liquid starlight when she turned her head. 34 days of pretending she wasn't there. "You know, for someone who commands an entire starship, you're remarkably bad at conversation," she said, her voice a melodic hum that cut through the hum of the ship's systems. Her name was Elira, though Martin hadn't used it in his reports. Prisoner, asset, intelligence operative. Those were the terms he stuck to. His jaw tightened as he kept his eyes fixed on the console. "We're not here to converse." "Then what are we here for, Commander?" Elira stretched, the black weave of her Serolithan bodysuit shifting across her lithe form, its subtle bioluminescent threads pulsing faintly. "Because from where I'm sitting, we're just two people in a very small space, deliberately ignoring each other." Martin's fingers hovered over the controls. The mission had been straightforward: extract the Serolithan operative from her homeworld. Alliance intelligence believed she held critical data on Serolith's quantum defense grid, a system that could tip the balance in the escalating tensions between the Terran Alliance and the Serolithan Ascendancy. What they hadn't mentioned was that she'd come willingly, or that her presence would be so distracting. "You're a prisoner of war," he said flatly. Elira's laugh was like the chime of crystal, sharp and bright in the sterile cabin. "Is that what they told you, that there's a war?" Martin's fingers paused. There wasn't a war, not yet, but the Cold War between Earth and Serolith had been simmering for years, with skirmishes over trade routes and border systems threatening to boil over. His superiors had been clear: get the intel by any means necessary. "You're an intelligence asset," he corrected, his voice clipped. "And you're avoiding me." Elira slid off the bunk, her bare feet silent on the metal floor. Her sapphire skin shimmered faintly, intricate patterns of light swirling across it like ripples in water. Ever since Jenkins died, Martin flinched at the name. Lieutenant Jenkins had been his second in command, a friend who'd shared too many late-night drinks and bad jokes. The ambush on their last patrol had been brutal, a Serolithan stealth drone turning their skiff into a fireball. Martin had dragged Jenkins's body back to the Wraith himself, the weight of it heavier than the shrapnel scars on his back. "Jenkins has nothing to do with this," he growled. "Doesn't he?" Elira was behind him now, close enough that he could feel the cool radiance of her skin like moonlight on his neck. "You blame yourself, Commander, and now you're punishing yourself by denying everything." Martin spun his chair around, finally facing her. Her eyes, iridescent with vertical pupils like a panther's, held a mix of amusement and something softer, pity maybe. "You don't know what you're talking about," he snapped. "I know more than you think." She leaned closer, her silver-violet hair brushing the console. "I know why your alliance sent you to capture me. I know about the quantum weapon they think my people are building, and I know you haven't slept properly in weeks." He stood abruptly, forcing her to step back. "I'm checking the perimeter sensors again. That's the third time today," she called as he punched the door code with more force than necessary. "You know, on Serolith we have a saying," Elira said, her voice losing its teasing edge. "A warrior who denies their heart denies their strength." Martin paused, his hand on the door panel. "On Earth we say duty first. And is it your duty to pretend I don't exist?" Her words were soft now, almost vulnerable. "I came with you voluntarily, Martin. I'm not your enemy." The use of his first name hit like a shockwave. He turned, really looking at her for the first time in days. Her sapphire skin glowed faintly, the patterns shifting like waves under starlight. Her eyes held flecks of silver, bright against the dark vertical slits. "Then what are you?" he asked quietly. Elira stepped closer, close enough that he could smell the faint ozone of her alien physiology. "I'm someone tired of being ignored." Her fingers moved to the seam of her bodysuit at her shoulder, the fabric parting to reveal the curve of her collarbone. "I'm someone who's watched you torture yourself for weeks." The The suit slid lower, deliberate and unhurried. And I'm someone who's decided that if you won't acknowledge me, I'll make it impossible for you to ignore me. Martin's throat went dry as she continued, her movements bold yet graceful. Human male, she said, her voice steady despite the audacity of her actions. It's been over a month and you haven't deflowered me. I'm beginning to take it personally. His hand shot out, catching her wrist before the suit revealed more. Stop. Why? Her challenge hung in the air, her eyes locked on his. Give me one honest reason. The ship's warning system blared, bathing the cabin in pulsing red light. Martin released her instantly, military training kicking in. Proximity alert, he said, lunging for the console. Something's approaching. Illyra pulled her suit back into place. All business now. Pirates. Martin scanned the readouts, his brow furrowing. No, it's a Cerolithan ship. They've found us. The stellar wraith rocked as the Cerolithan ship's first volley struck, quantum pulses tearing through the void with surgical precision. Martin's hands flew across the console, activating defensive shields as the cabin shuddered, throwing him and Illyra against the bulkhead. Shrapnel rained from a collapsing overhead panel, and Martin instinctively shielded her, pain searing through his back as a jagged fragment sliced his shoulder. Blood soaked his uniform, warm and sticky, but he gritted his teeth, ignoring it. Martin, Illyra's voice cut through the ringing in his ears, her cool, sapphire-blue hands turning him over. Her iridescent eyes widened with concern. You're hurt. I'm fine, he growled, trying to push himself up. The movement sent fresh agony through his shoulder, and he hissed, unable to hide it. You're not fine, you stubborn human. Illyra's strength surprised him as she hauled him to the bunk, her silver-violet hair brushing his face. You've got metal in your back. The ship shook again, but the impact was softer. The Wraith's automated defenses were kicking in, deflecting the worst of the assault. Martin tried to stand, his vision swimming. We need to return fire. What we need is to stop you bleeding out. Illyra ripped open a medical kit from under the bunk, her movements precise despite the chaos. Hold still. Martin clenched his jaw as she cut away his uniform, exposing the gashes. This will hurt, she warned, her voice steady. The sting of her extracting the first shard made him grit his teeth harder, but he refused to cry out. The ship on auto-defense, she said, working quickly. You programmed it yourself, now be quiet and let me work. He watched her through pain-hazed eyes, her sapphire skin glowing faintly as she removed fragments and applied antiseptic. Why, he asked, the word slipping out. Why what? She didn't look up, her fingers deftly sealing a wound with a regenerative patch. Why help me, I've been. He trailed off, guilt twisting in his gut. An ass, Illyra supplied, the corner of her mouth quirking. Yes, you have, but you just took shrapnel from me, so we're even. The ship lurched, accelerating as the autopilot engaged evasive maneuvers. Martin exhaled, relief cutting through the pain. We might make it. Of course we will, Illyra said, applying the final patch. I didn't come this far to die in a tiny cabin with a human who won't even look at me. Despite the pain, Martin laughed, a short, sharp sound. Is that what bothers you, that I won't look at you? Her iridescent eyes met his, serious now. No, what bothers me is that you won't see me, there's a difference. The ship jolted, throwing Illyra forward. Martin caught her with his good arm, her sapphire skin pressed against his bare chest, her face inches from his. I see you now, he said softly, his voice rough with pain and something else. For a moment they were frozen, the only sounds their mingled breathing and the distant hum of the engines. Illyra's fingers traced his jaw, cool and deliberate. Do you know why I came with you, Martin Fleet? He shook his head, not trusting his voice. Because on Cerolith there's a prophecy, the Starlight Codex. It speaks of a star warrior with eyes like storm clouds who will change everything. Her thumb brushed his lip. When I saw you, I knew. Knew what? His voice was barely a whisper. You were worth risking everything for. The warning system fell silent, the ship breaking free from pursuit. In the quiet, Martin's heartbeat thundered. You don't know me, he said. I've been watching you for a month. Her fingers slid to his collarbone, avoiding his wounds. I know you're brave, loyal, stubborn to fault, and I know you want me as much as I want you. The truth hit like a quantum pulse. He'd buried his desire under duty and grief, but it had never left. Jenkins, he began. Would want you to live, Illyra finished. Not just exist, live. Martin's good hand slid into her silver-violet hair, soft as silk. I don't even know if we're compatible. Her laugh sent shivers down his spine. There's only one way to find out, Commander. Their lips met, her mouth cool and alien yet perfect. The kiss deepened, hungry and primal, breaking through the walls he'd built. When they parted, breathless, the cabin seemed to pulse with new energy. That answers one question, Illyra whispered, her lips brushing his. Martin smiled, the first real smile in weeks. We need more data. Her answering laugh was cut short by another kiss, and for the first time since Jenkins's death, Martin let himself feel beyond grief and duty. The stellar wraith docked at the Nexus trading outpost, a sprawling hub of interconnected stations floating in neutral space, its corridors buzzing with the clamor of a dozen species. Martin kept his hand near his sidearm as he and Illyra navigated the crowded central plaza, her sapphire skin drawing curious glances. His other hand rested at the small of her back, a protective gesture that felt natural now, though it earned them stares from passing Draconians and Tellarites. Illyra's silver-violet hair shimmered under the neon lights, and the pendant she'd given him, a glowing Cerolithan sigil marking him as under the protection of the Starlight Order, felt warm against his chest. Your contact, where are we meeting them? Martin asked, eyeing a group of armored mercenaries watching them too closely. The Crystal Veil, Illyra replied, nodding toward a dimly lit bar across the plaza. It's run by a Cerolithan sympathizer. They approached, Illyra stiffened, her iridescent eyes narrowing. Martin followed her gaze to a tall Cerulithan male striding toward them, his skin a deep indigo with gold patterns that screamed high rank. His platinum hair was braided tightly and his amber eyes locked on Illyra with cold intensity. Soren, she whispered, her voice tight. Not your contact, I take it, Martin said, his hand brushing his sidearm. Illyra of House Starlight, the Cerulithan called, his voice carrying over the plaza's din. The Ascendancy is displeased with your absence. The crowd parted, sensing trouble. Martin noted some aliens slipping away, others edging closer for the show. Commander Soren, Illyra said, her tone formal but edged with defiance. I wasn't aware the Ascendancy had jurisdiction here. Soren's gaze shifted to Martin, his amber eyes narrowing at the pendant. So the rumors are true, you've bonded with this terrestrial. The word dripped with disdain. I've chosen the Star Warrior of the Starlight Codex, Illyra countered, her sapphire skin flaring, as is my right as a seer. Soren stepped closer, towering over them. A right promised to me, the Ascendancy approved our union years ago. Martin's temper flared, but he kept his voice steady. Look, I don't know your history, but you have no place here, human, Soren snapped, his hand resting on a quantum blade at his belt. This is a Cerulithan matter. Considering I'm part of this prophecy, I'd say it's my matter too, Martin shot back, meeting Soren's glare. Enough, a new voice cut in, sharp and commanding. A diminutive four-armed Clithian approached, her pale green skin and 6 eyes blinking in a rapid pattern. Matriarch Vis, Illyra said, relief evident in her voice. We were coming to meet you. I grew impatient, Vis said, her lower arms gesturing sharply, and I sensed a confrontation that could ruin everything. She turned to Soren. This concerns all sentient life, Commander. Shall we continue in private, or do you wish to entertain every bounty hunter here? Soren's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. Inside the Crystal Veil's private room, Vis activated a privacy field, its hum sealing them off. She withdrew a pulsing artifact from a hidden panel, its form shifting between solid and liquid. The Starlight Key, Illyra breathed. The what? Martin asked. The third element of the prophecy, Vis explained. The Codex speaks of the Star Warrior, the Sapphire Bride, and the Starlight Key to avert catastrophe. Soren scoffed. A myth to weaken Cerulith. A myth that responds to the prophecy's truth, Vis countered, holding out the key. Touch it together. Martin and Illyra reached for it, their fingers brushing. The key flared, its light merging their energies, transforming into a crystalline structure with patterns matching Illyra's skin. Vis's eyes blinked rapidly. The prophecy is confirmed. Soren's face darkened, but he said nothing. Martin glanced at Illyra. What now? We find the Temple of Starlight on Cerulith, she said. That's where the quantum weapon must be neutralized. And where that? Martin asked. In the heart of Ascendancy space, Vis replied. Heavily guarded, no human has ever entered. Until now, Martin said, squeezing Illyra's hand. Soren laughed coldly. You'll die before you reach it. Then help us, Illyra said quietly. You know the weapon's flaw, it'll mutate and destroy Cerulithans too. Soren's amber eyes flickered with conflict. I'll get you to Cerulith, he said finally. What you do after is your funeral. Starlight Soren's ship, the Sapphire Fang, sliced through the void with predatory elegance, its crystalline hull reflecting the stars like a living prism. Unlike the Stellar Wraith's utilitarian design, the Cerulithan vessel was all sleek curves and glowing panels, a testament to their advanced quantum tech. In their guest quarters, Martin paced, his healed wounds barely a twinge thanks to Illyra's care and Cerulithan region patches. Illyra meditated, the starlight key floating between her palms, its glow casting patterns across her sapphire skin. I don't trust him, Martin said, glancing at the door. Soren's got too much history with you. Illyra opened one eye, her silver-violet hair pooling around her. You don't need to trust him, trust me. I do, Martin said, sitting beside her. It's the jealous ex with a warship I'm worried about, she smiled, closing her eyes again. Soren was a political match, not a personal one, the Ascendancy's choice, not mine. Could have fooled me, Martin muttered. The way he glares at me is irrelevant, Illyra interrupted, the key settling into her palm as she abandoned meditation. What matters is how I see you. Her iridescent eyes locked on his, sparking heat through his core. And how's that? He asked, his voice husky. Like you're the answer to a question I've carried my whole life. She leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. Like you're the human who claimed what was always meant to be his. Martin groaned, capturing her mouth in a deep kiss. The key pulsed between them, its light casting their shadows in a dance of sapphire and starlight. A sharp knock broke them apart. We're approaching Cerulith's defense grid, Soren's voice announced coldly. Bridge now, Martin sighed, pressing his forehead to Illyra's. Impeccable timing. He's probably watching, she teased, unconcerned. Let's give him a show. Martin stole another kiss, grinning. Later, on the bridge, Soren stood rigid, his amber eyes fixed on the viewscreen showing Cerulith's shimmering blue oceans and orbital defenses. Beautiful, Martin murmured despite himself. And deadly, Soren said, not turning, especially for humans. Good thing we're authorized, Illyra countered, standing beside Soren. Soren's mouth tightened. My codes will get us past the outer grid. After that, he let the words hang. We have the key in the codex, Illyra said. Prophecy will guide us. Prophecy won't stop a quantum cannon, Martin pointed out. Soren's lips twitched in a rare smirk. Perhaps the human has sense, a calm officer, his skin a pale azure, approached. Commander, we're being hailed by Defense Station Prime. On screen, Soren ordered. A stern Cerulithan female appeared, her gold patterns marking her as high-ranking. Commander Soren, your return is unscheduled. My mission is classified, Soren said smoothly. Direct authorization from High Seer Thalon. The captain's eyes narrowed. I'll need to verify. Soren transmitted a code and Martin held his breath, he and Illyra positioned just out of view. After a tense pause, the captain nodded. Proceed Vector 428, welcome home. The screen darkened. Too easy, Martin muttered. It won't stay easy, Soren said, turning to them. Once we land, you have 12 minutes before secondary authentication flags my override. You faked it, Martin asked, incredulous. Of course, Illyra said, studying Soren. He's risking everything. I'm protecting Serolith, Soren said flatly. After landing, you're on your own unless I escort you as prisoners to the Temple of Starlight. What? Martin and Illyra said in unison. It's the only way, Soren insisted. I'll claim I captured you stealing artifacts. The guards will let me bring you to the inner sanctum. And then, Martin demanded. Then I get you to the Chamber of Convergence, Soren said. I received intel the quantum weapon deploys tomorrow. If it launches, we're all doomed. Martin exchanged a glance with Illyra, her sapphire skin flaring with resolve. Let's move. The capital city of Serolith was a marvel of crystalline towers and bioluminescent canals, its buildings pulsing like living organisms. Martin, in ceremonial restraints, marveled despite the danger, while Illyra, similarly bound, bore symbols marking her as a traitor. Soren led them through the bustling plaza, his indigo skin and gold patterns drawing deference. Keep your head down, he hissed at Martin. Prisoners don't gawk. Martin complied, but caught Illyra's eye. She stumbled suddenly, her pupils dilating. I hear it, she whispered. The temple it's speaking. Save it for inside, Soren snapped, glancing at the gathering crowd. The Temple of Starlight loomed, its angular design stark against the city's curves. Guards approached, their armor glowing. Commander Soren, the lead guard said, eyeing Martin, a human on Serolith. They stole sacred artifacts, Soren said. I need the questioning chamber. After a tense moment, the guard nodded. Inside, the temple's murals depicted the Codex's prophecy. In the sealed chamber, Soren removed their restraints. Minutes before they suspect, he said, move. Illyra swayed, her eyes distant. The full prophecy, it's clear now. The weapon's neutralization requires a sacrifice, the Star Warrior, the Sapphire Bride, or the rejected suitor. Martin's stomach dropped. Sacrifice? One must give their life force, Illyra said, her voice trembling, to power the key. Then it's me, Martin said without hesitation. No, Illyra gripped him. I won't lose you. It should be me, Soren said quietly. I have no place in your bond. Before Martin could argue, guards pounded the door. Commander Soren, the High Seer demands you. They know, Soren said grimly. Chamber of Convergence 3 levels down. The Chamber of Convergence pulsed with an ancient, almost sentient energy, its crystalline walls shimmering with patterns that mirrored the swirling bioluminescence of Illyra's sapphire blue skin. The vast chamber, buried deep within the Temple of Starlight, felt alive, its air heavy with the weight of prophecy. At its center stood a towering pedestal, carved from a single prism of cerolite, glowing with veins of liquid light. The starlight key hovered above it, spinning slowly in a column of radiant energy, casting fractal shadows across the murals that adorned the walls, ancient depictions of the Star Warrior, the Sapphire Bride, and the rejected suitor, their hands joined to channel a power that could reshape destinies. Martin Fleet stood at the pedestal's base, his gray-blue eyes reflecting the key's glow, his alliance uniform torn but his resolve unbroken. Illyra, her silver-violet hair cascading like a nebula, stood beside him, her iridescent eyes blazing with determination. Soren, the Serolithan commander, flanked them, his indigo skin marred with green blood from a recent skirmish, his amber eyes flickering with a mix of pride and resignation. The trio formed an unlikely trinity, bound by the Starlight Codex's prophecy and the looming threat of a quantum weapon that could annihilate both Earth and Serolith. We must hurry, Soren said, his voice taut as he sealed the chamber's massive doors with a quantum lock. The hum of the mechanism echoed, a temporary barrier against the temple guards pounding outside. The ritual begins now or we lose everything. Martin studied the pedestal's intricate controls, a lattice of crystal circuits pulsing in sync with the key. How does this work? He asked, his military training keeping his tone steady despite the chaos of their situation. Illyra's fingers brushed the pedestal, her sapphire skin flaring as she interfaced with its energy. The key requires all three of us, Star Warrior, Sapphire Bride, rejected suitor. Our energies must align to activate it. Then one of us channels their life force to neutralize the quantum weapon. That's me, Martin said without hesitation, his jaw set. I'm the outsider here. If someone's got to pay the price, it's not going to be either of you. Illyra's hand tightened on his arm, her vertical pupils dilating with fear. No, Martin, I won't let you sacrifice yourself. Soren's amber eyes softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through his stoic facade. It should be me, he said quietly. The Codex names me the rejected suitor. My role ends here. Yours, he glanced at Illyra, then Martin. Yours is the future. Before Martin could argue, the chamber shook violently, the crystalline walls cracking as an explosion tore through the far side. Dust and shards rained down, and through the breach stepped High Seer Thalon, his obsidian skin gleaming like polished stone, his silver eyes burning with fanatical rage. Flanked by a dozen armored guards, their quantum blades crackling, he surveyed the scene with cold disdain. Soren, he sneered, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate the air. Your treachery was predictable, but your audacity to bring a human into the Temple of Starlight is an abomination. Soren stepped forward, his own blade drawn, green blood dripping from a wound on his chest. You doom us all, Thalon. The quantum weapon's flaw will destroy Serolithans as surely as humans. Thalin's laugh was a harsh, grating sound devoid of humor. A necessary purge, humans are a plague spreading their chaos across the stars. Serolith will rise pure from their ashes even if it costs a few of our own. Martin's temper flared, but he held his ground, his hand inching toward the starlight key. Genocide's a hell of a way to prove your superiority, he said, his voice sharp. You're not saving Serolith, you're killing it. Thalin's silver eyes narrowed and he raised a hand, signaling his guards to advance. You defile this sacred place, terrestrial, your kind will never understand the purity of our purpose. Elira's sapphire skin flared brighter, her voice resonating with the authority of a seer. The Codex speaks of unity, not destruction. You've twisted its words to justify your hatred. The guards hesitated, their blades wavering as Elira's words echoed. Thalin's face twisted with fury. Enough, seize them. Martin didn't wait, he lunged for the starlight key, his fingers closing around its crystalline form. Expecting a burn, he was stunned when its energy flowed into him like a cool tide, merging with his own. The key pulsed, its light amplifying, and Elira rushed to his side, her hands joining his on the artifact. Their energies intertwined, sapphire patterns dancing between them, the chamber's walls humming in response. Martin, Elira cried, her voice a mix of alarm and awe. It's not draining you. It's channeling, Martin said, his voice tinged with wonder. The key's energy felt alive, not destructive, as if it recognized him as the Star Warrior. Human physiology, it's amplifying the key, not sacrificing it. Elira's eyes widened, realization dawning. The Codex never meant death, it meant channeling. Your human energy signature is the catalyst. Thalin roared, his quantum blade flaring as he charged. Soren intercepted, their blades clashing in a burst of violet sparks. Green blood sprayed as Thalin's weapon slashed Soren's chest, deeper this time. Soren, Elira screamed, her hand tightening on Martin's. Finish it, Soren gasped, staggering but holding Thalin at bay. Now, Martin focused, willing the key's energy to surge. The chamber filled with a blinding dome of light, expanding outward like a supernova. The quantum weapon's components hidden across Serolith began to disintegrate, their destructive potential neutralized by the key's power. Thalin froze mid-attack, his blade raised as the light enveloped him. Instead of harm, the key latched onto his negative energy, his hatred, his fanaticism, draining it like a sponge. His obsidian skin dulled, his silver eyes dimmed, and he collapsed, a withered shell of the zealot he'd been. The guards, witnessing their leader's fall, dropped their weapons, some kneeling in awe, others fleeing into the temple's depths. The dome of light pulsed once more, then faded, leaving the chamber silent save for the hum of the key. Elira rushed to Soren, who slumped against the wall, his wounds severe but his regenerative biology knitting them closed. You did it, he said weakly, a faint smile breaking through his pain. The prophecy fulfilled. We all did, Martin said, helping him to his feet. You held the line. Elira's sapphire skin glowed softly as she touched Soren's shoulder. You honored the Codex even when it cost you everything. Soren's amber eyes met hers, a flicker of old longing buried beneath acceptance. It cost me nothing worth keeping, he said. Your bond, it's what the prophecy needed, not me. The chamber doors burst open and temple guards poured in, their armor glinting, but the lead guard, an elder with intricate gold patterns, froze at the sight of the glowing key, Thalin's defeated form, and the trio standing united. The Starlight Codex, he murmured, dropping to one knee. The prophecy is fulfilled. The others followed, their blades lowered in reverence. Rise, Elira said, her voice carrying the weight of her role as seer. No more kneeling to false ideals. Today, Serolith and Earth begin anew. The elder guard stood, his eyes wide with awe. The High Seer's plans, the weapon, it's gone, neutralized, Martin said, holding up the key, its light now a steady, comforting glow. Your planet's safe, so is mine. The guard hesitated, then bowed deeply. We will escort you to the Ascendancy Council. They must know the truth. The council chamber was a marvel of Serolithan architecture, its domed ceiling a mosaic of cerolite crystals that refracted light into a kaleidoscope of blues and violets. The Ascendancy Council, a dozen Serolithans with skin ranging from pale azure to deep indigo, sat in a semicircle, their expressions a mix of shock and skepticism, as Martin, Elira, and Soren recounted the events in the Chamber of Convergence. Thalin, now conscious but subdued, sat under guard, his once imposing presence reduced to a shadow. You claim the quantum weapon is destroyed, Counselor Vera, a female with silver patterns, asked, her voice sharp, and that this human is the Star Warrior. The Starlight Key confirmed it, Elira said, holding up the artifact, its crystalline form pulsing softly. Martin's energy, combined with mine and Soren's, neutralized the weapon. Its components are inert, scattered across Serolith. Your own sensors can verify. A younger counselor, his skin a vibrant teal, leaned forward. And Thalin, he orchestrated this. Soren stepped forward, his wounds bandaged but his posture unyielding. Thalin manipulated the Ascendancy, twisting the Codex to fuel his anti-human crusade. I helped bring Elira and Martin here, knowing the weapon's flaw would destroy us all. Murmurs rippled through the council. Vera's eyes narrowed. You betrayed your own commander, Soren. Why? Because I'm a Serolithan, Soren said, his voice steady. My duty is to our people, not to one man's madness. The Codex spoke of unity, not division. I saw that truth too late, but I see it now. Martin glanced at Elira, her sapphire skin glowing with pride. He stepped forward, his alliance uniform a stark contrast to the council's robes. Look, I'm not here to play prophet or hero. I'm a soldier who wants peace. Your weapon threatened my world, but it would have taken yours down too. We stopped it together. That's what the Codex meant, Earth and Serolith, not one or the other. The council exchanged glances, their bioluminescent patterns flickering in thought. Vera stood, her silver eyes appraising Martin. You speak boldly for a terrestrial, but the key's activation cannot be denied, nor can the weapon's neutralization. We will convene to discuss terms of peace with your alliance. Martin nodded, his jaw tight. Good, because I'd rather not fight my way out of here. Illyra's laugh like crystal chimes broke the tension. He's stubborn, but he grows on you. Vera's lips twitched, a rare sign of amusement. So it seems you, Illyra, will represent Sarolith in these talks. Your bond with this human, it is unprecedented, but perhaps it is the bridge we need. As the council adjourned, Martin pulled Illyra aside, his hand finding hers. You okay with this? Being the face of Sarolith, her iridescent eyes sparkled. I was born for it. Just like you were born to crash into my life and change everything. He grinned, brushing a strand of silver-violet hair from her face. Best mission I ever botched. Soren approached, his expression softer now. I'll stay to ensure Thalon faces justice, he said. You too, you're the future the Codex promised. Don't waste it. Martin clasped his hand. You're not so bad for a jealous ex. Soren's laugh was grudging but genuine. And you're not so bad for a human. 6 months later, the Unity, a joint Terran-Sarolithan diplomatic vessel, glided toward Earth, its crystalline hull a testament to their new alliance. Martin stood on the observation deck, his gray-blue eyes fixed on the blue-green planet growing larger in the view screen. Illyra, now Sarolith's ambassador, adjusted her formal robe, its bioluminescent threads matching her sapphire skin. Her silver-violet hair was braided intricately, a nod to her seer heritage. Nervous? Martin asked, slipping an arm around her waist. About meeting your mother and explaining why we married on Sarolith without her, Illyra teased, leaning into him. Terrified, he laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet deck. She'll love you, just don't mention the part where you had to practically undress to get my attention. Her smile was radiant, her patterns flaring with contentment. I love you, Martin Fleet, stubborn, brave, and just a little bit idiotic. I sacrificed my solitude for you, he said, his eyes soft. My walls, my guilt over Jenkins, and I'd do it again. She rose on her toes, kissing him deeply. You gained a galaxy, she whispered, and me. As Earth filled the view screen, Martin reflected on their journey from a cramped cabin where he'd tried to ignore the most captivating woman he'd ever met to standing as partners in a peace that spanned worlds. The Starlight Codex had brought them together, but their bond, forged in trust, sacrifice, and love, would carry them forward. And as Illyra's laughter echoed, promising more adventures among the stars, Martin knew he'd never regret answering her challenge that first night. The diplomatic vessel Unity hung in low Earth orbit, its crystalline hull, a fusion of Terran engineering and Sarolithan aesthetics, gleaming like a beacon of hope against the backdrop of the planet's blue-green curvature. Commander Martin Fleet stood on the observation deck, his gray-blue eyes fixed on the swirling clouds below, his alliance uniform crisp but his posture relaxed, a far cry from the tense soldier who'd first met Illyra 6 months ago. Beside him, Illyra, Sarolith's first ambassador to the Terran Alliance, adjusted her formal robe, its bioluminescent threads pulsing in sync with her sapphire-blue skin. Her silver-violet hair was braided intricately, a nod to her role as a seer, but her iridescent eyes sparkled with the playful mischief Martin had come to love. Still nervous about meeting my mother? Martin asked, slipping an arm around her waist, his fingers brushing the glowing patterns on her skin. Illyra leaned into him, her smile teasing. Less about your mother and more about explaining why we got married on Sarolith without inviting her. Humans are sentimental about such things, yes. Martin chuckled, the sound warm in the quiet deck. She'll forgive us once she sees you, just don't mention the part where you had to practically strip to get my attention. Her laugh like crystal chimes filled the air. You're never letting that go, are you, human male? Never, he said, pulling her closer, his lips brushing her temple. It's my favorite mission debrief. Their moment was interrupted by a soft chime from the console, followed by a holographic projection flickering to life. Captain Elena Vasquez, the Unity's Terran commander, appeared, her expression grim. Commander Fleet, Ambassador Illyra, we've got a situation. Incoming transmission from Sarolith Priority 1. Martin's stomach tightened, his soldier's instincts kicking in. Put it through. The hologram shifted, revealing Counselor Vera, her silver-patterned skin and stern demeanor unmistakable. Ambassador Commander, she said, her voice clipped. We have a problem. A faction within the Ascendancy, loyalist to High Seer Thalon, has seized a hidden quantum cache in the outer reaches. They're calling themselves the Purifiers. Illyra's sapphire skin flared, her pupils narrowing to slits. Thalon's dead, the Starlight Key drained him. Vera's eyes darkened. Not dead, comatose. His mind was shattered, but his body lingers in stasis. The Purifiers claim they can revive him using the cache's technology. Worse, they've activated a dormant quantum pulse array, a prototype of the weapon you neutralized. It's not as powerful, but it's enough to destabilize Sarolith's core if deployed. Martin's jaw clenched. In Earth, can it reach us? Not directly, Vera said. But the fallout would disrupt trade routes and destabilize the sector. The Ascendancy requests your assistance. The Unity is the closest vessel with both Terran and Sarolithan expertise. Illyra exchanged a glance with Martin, her hand finding his. The Starlight Codex warned of a shadow rising after the light. This must be it. Martin nodded, his mind already racing through tactical scenarios. We're on it. Send coordinates and intel. And Vera, any sign of Soren? Soren is leading a small Ascendancy task force to intercept, Vera replied. He insisted on joining you. He feels responsible. The transmission ended and Martin turned to Illyra, his gray-blue eyes steady. Looks like our honeymoon's on hold. She smirked, her patterns glowing with resolve. You humans and your honeymoons, let's save the galaxy first, then we'll talk vacations. The Unity dropped out of hyperspace near the outer reaches, a desolate region of Cerulithan space littered with asteroid fields and abandoned mining stations. The quantum cache was hidden within a derelict facility, its crystalline structure half buried in a massive asteroid. Long-range scans confirmed a dozen purifier ships, sleek predatory vessels bristling with quantum weaponry, patrolling the perimeter. Soren's Task Force 3 Cerulithan cruisers was already engaged, their energy shields flaring under heavy fire. Martin stood on the Unity's bridge, Elira at his side, her presence a steady anchor as he coordinated with Vasquez. Soren's holding them off, but he's outnumbered, Martin said, studying the tactical display. We need to punch through their line and board that facility. Elira's eyes narrowed, her fingers brushing the starlight key now worn as a pendant around her neck. The Codex speaks of a second convergence, a test of unity after the first victory. The key might be our edge. Vasquez, a no-nonsense woman with a scar across her cheek, raised an eyebrow. You're saying that glowing trinket can take out a quantum array? It neutralized a planet killer, Martin said, his tone dry. I'd say it's got a shot. The Unity joined the fray, its hybrid weapons, Terran plasma cannons and Cerulithan quantum beams cutting through the Purifier fleet. Martin piloted a shuttle with Elira and a small team weaving through asteroid debris as Soren's cruisers provided cover. The facility loomed ahead, its crystalline spires jagged and foreboding. Shields at 60%, Vasquez reported over the comm. You've got 10 minutes before we're overwhelmed. Copy that, Martin said, guiding the shuttle into a docking bay. The team disembarked, weapons ready, Elira's sapphire skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Soren met them inside, his indigo skin marred with fresh wounds, his amber eyes fierce. You're late, Soren said, a ghost of a smile breaking through. Had to make an entrance, Martin shot back, checking his sidearm. Where's the array? Lower levels, Soren said, leading the way. The purifiers have a quantum shield around it, conventional weapons won't breach it. Elira held up the starlight key, its light pulsing. This will. They navigated the facility's labyrinthine corridors, their boots echoing on crystalline floors. Purifier guards ambushed them twice, their quantum blades flashing, but Martin's training and Soren's skill dispatched them efficiently. Elira's agility surprised Martin, her movements fluid as she disarmed a guard with a kick that sent his blade skittering. You're full of surprises, Martin said, catching his breath. She winked, her patterns flaring. You have no idea, Commander. They reached the array chamber, a vast cavern where a pulsating quantum core glowed, its energy distorting the air. Purifier technicians scrambled, but their leader, a Cerulithan female with crimson patterns named Clara, stepped forward, her eyes blazing. You're too late, she hissed. The array is charging. Cerulith will be purified and Thalon will rise. Elira's voice was steel. Thalon's vision was a lie. The Codex demands unity, not destruction. Clara laughed, drawing a quantum whip. The Codex is a myth for weaklings, will burn the human taint from the stars. Martin didn't hesitate. He fired, his plasma pistol grazing Clara's shoulder, but her whip lashed out, wrapping around his wrist and yanking him forward. Pain seared through his arm as he hit the ground, the whip's energy burning. Elira lunged, her own blade, a ceremonial seer's dagger, clashing with Clara's whip, forcing her back. Soren tackled another technician, his strength overwhelming despite his injuries. Get to the core, he shouted. Martin scrambled up, Elira at his side. They reached the array, its quantum shield crackling. Elira pressed the starlight key against it, her sapphire skin flaring as the key's energy resonated. The shield wavered but held. It needs all three of us, she said, her voice urgent. Like before. Soren joined them, blood dripping from his wounds, and placed his hand on the key. The chamber shook as their energies merged, the key's light intensifying. The shield shattered, exposing the core. Clara screamed, charging with her whip, but Martin fired again, this time hitting her leg, sending her sprawling. Now, Elira said, guiding the key into the core's interface. The chamber filled with light, the array's energy destabilizing as the key neutralized it. The purifiers fled, their plan crumbling, but Clara lunged one last time, her whip aimed at Elira. Martin tackled her, taking the whip's lash across his back. Pain exploded, but he held Clara down until Soren restrained her. The core shut down, its glow fading, the threat ended. Elira knelt beside Martin, her cool hands on his face. You idiot, she whispered, her eyes wet. Stop throwing yourself into danger for me. He grinned weakly. Habit, Soren helped him up, his amber eyes warm with respect. You're not bad for a human. Back at you, Martin said, wincing. The Unity extracted them, the Purifier fleet retreating into the asteroid field. Back on the bridge, Vasquez clapped Martin's shoulder. Nice work, Commander. You and your ambassador make a hell of a team. Elira's patterns glowed with pride. He's more than a commander, she said, her hand in his. He's the star warrior. Martin pulled her close, ignoring the pain in his back. And you're the sapphire bride who keeps saving my ass. Her laugh echoed as the Unity prepared to return to Earth, the shadow of the Purifiers dispelled for now. The Unity docked at Earth's primary orbital station, a bustling hub of Terran diplomats, traders, and military personnel. Martin Fleet stood in the diplomatic lounge, his wounds from the outer reaches battle healed thanks to Cerulithan region patches, though a faint ache lingered as a reminder of Clara's quantum whip. Elira, resplendent in her ambassadorial robes, stood beside him, her sapphire skin glowing softly under the station's artificial lights. Her silver-violet hair was loose now, cascading over her shoulders, and the starlight key hung around her neck, a constant reminder of their shared destiny. They were preparing for a historic summit, the first formal peace talks between the Terran Alliance and the Serolithan Ascendancy, set to solidify the fragile truce forged by their actions. Martin adjusted his dress uniform, feeling out of place among the diplomats. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked Illyra, his gray-blue eyes scanning her face. Earth's politicians can be prickly. Illyra's iridescent eyes sparkled with amusement. "Compared to facing down a quantum array, I'll manage. Besides, I have you to keep them in line." He grinned, slipping his hand into hers. "Just don't expect me to be diplomatic. I'm better at shooting things." Her laugh, like crystal chimes, drew curious glances from nearby aides. "That's why I married you, Commander. You're my favorite blunt instrument." Before Martin could retort, the lounge's door slid open, admitting Soren, his indigo skin and gold patterns striking against his ceremonial ascendancy armor. His wounds had healed, though a new scar crossed his chest, a badge of their shared fight. His amber eyes met Martin's with a nod of respect, a far cry from the hostility of their first meeting. "The Ascendancy delegation is ready," he said. "Counselor Vera sends her regards and a warning. The purifiers may be scattered, but their ideology lingers." Martin's jaw tightened. "They're like roaches. You squash one nest, another pops up." Illyra's patterns flared briefly. "The Codex predicted this. A shadow that persists until the light is fully embraced will need to stay vigilant." The summit began in a grand chamber, its walls lined with holographic displays of Earth and Serolith, symbolizing their shared future. Terran diplomats led by Admiral Helena Cortez sat across from the Serolithan delegation, Vera at their head. Martin and Illyra took their places as mediators, the starlight key glowing softly as a symbol of their authority. Soren stood guard, his presence a quiet reassurance. Cortez, a stern woman with graying hair, opened the talks. "The Terran Alliance welcomes this alliance, but we need assurances. The Purifier's actions suggest Serolith's stability is fragile." Vera's silver eyes narrowed. "The Ascendancy has purged Thalan's loyalists. Our stability is no less secure than Earth's, given your history of internal conflicts." Martin suppressed a smirk. Point to Vera. He leaned forward. "Let's focus on what unites us. The quantum weapon's gone, thanks to the Codex. But the Purifiers are still out there, and they're not picky about who they hurt, human or Serolithan." Illyra nodded, her voice calm but firm. "The Starlight Codex speaks of a lasting convergence, a bond between our worlds. We propose a joint task force to hunt the Purifiers and secure both our systems." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, but a Terran diplomat, a wiry man named Kessler, stood. "And what of this key? It's a Serolithan artifact. How do we know it won't be used against us?" Illyra's patterns flared, but her tone remained steady. "The key responds only to the Star Warrior and the Sapphire Bride. It's a tool of unity, not a weapon." Martin placed his hand over hers, the key pulsing between them. "I'm human, Kessler. If I trust it, you can too." The talks progressed, agreements forming on trade, defense, and cultural exchange. But as the session broke for recess, a low rumble shook the station, followed by a blaring alarm. Vasquez's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, we've got hostiles. Purifier ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're targeting the station." Martin was on his feet, Illyra and Soren beside him. "How the hell did they get this close to Earth?" he demanded. "Stealth tech," Soren said, his amber eyes narrowing. "Thalan's designs. They're here for the key." The chamber erupted in chaos as diplomats scrambled for safety. Martin grabbed Illyra's hand, pulling her toward the command center. "Vasquez, get the Unity ready to launch. Soren with us." The command center was a hive of activity, Terran and Serolithan officers working together to repel the attack. The viewscreen showed 3 Purifier ships, their crystalline hulls cloaked in quantum distortion fields, firing on the station's shields. "They're after the key," Illyra said, clutching the artifact. "If they take it, they can restart Thalan's work." "Not happening," Martin said, his voice hard. He turned to Vasquez. "Can we board their lead ship?" "It's risky," she said, "but their shields drop when they fire. We've got a window." Martin, Illyra, and Soren boarded a combat shuttle, launching into the fray. The Purifier ships were fast, but the Unity's hybrid weapons gave them an edge. Martin piloted, dodging quantum beams as Illyra and Soren manned the guns. "There," Illyra pointed to the lead ship, its hull glowing with a familiar pattern. "That's Clara's vessel." They breached the ship's docking bay, fighting through Purifier guards to reach the bridge. Clara stood at the command console, her crimson patterns blazing with defiance. "You can't stop the purification," she snarled. "Thalan's vision will live." Martin fired a warning shot, scorching the deck beside her. "Thalan's vision died with his sanity. Stand down." Clara lunged, her quantum whip cracking. Illyra countered with her dagger, their movements a blur. Soren tackled a guard, clearing a path for Martin to reach the console. He interfaced the Starlight key, its light disrupting the ship's systems, shutting down its weapons. Clara screamed, her whip grazing Illyra's arm, but Soren tackled her, pinning her down. The Purifier fleet, seeing their flagship disabled, retreated. Martin helped Illyra up, her sapphire skin dimmed but her eyes fierce. "You okay?" he asked. "I'll live," she said, managing a smile. "Thanks to you." Back on the station, the summit resumed, the attack strengthening the resolve for unity. Cortez and Vera signed the treaty, establishing the Terran-Serolithan alliance. Martin and Illyra stood together, the Starlight Key a symbol of their shared victory. As the Unity prepared to depart for Serolith, Martin pulled Illyra close on the observation deck. "We make a hell of a team," he said, his gray-blue eyes soft. Her patterns glowed, her lips brushing his. "The Codex chose you for a reason, Star Warrior." "And so did I," he kissed her, the stars beyond promising new adventures, their bond the light that would guide both worlds forward.